We've been talking about the unmistakable sound of steel pan, an instrument synonymous with the Caribbean and, fact for you, the only acoustic instrument to be internationally recognised as being invented in the last 100 years. Today marks World Steelpan Day and events are being held all over the world to celebrate it. There's a big event in London this afternoon in Belgrave Square there. If you're going along, here's some of the bands you'll likely hear. Well, that was the Ebony Steel Band, actually, who Mel suggested for us a little bit earlier on. That was more soca by them. Senor Pam Man by the Melodian Steel Orchestra UK and Pam by Storm by the CSI Street Band. All three steel pan bands are going to be playing at the London event, marking World Steelpan Day later on. Well, the biggest party, though, is expected to take place in the home of Steelpan, Trinidad and Tobago. Earlier, I spoke to Denise Hernandez. She's the General Secretary of Pan Trinbago, which is an organisation that was set up to represent steelpan players. Well, I spoke to her live in Trinidad and Tobago earlier and asked her what made the steelpan such a special instrument.
The steelpan is considered probably one of the simplest instruments to learn to play. Unlike the piano or the guitar or these other things where you have hours of long practice and finger placements and all of this, the steelpan, by its design, by its nature, is very easy and simple to play, and its unique tonal quality attracts persons. And as yesterday in our conference, we had some people saying, when you listen to a steelpan or you listen to the music or you play the pan, it does something to you. You're so unique to it. And I think this is one of the reasons why it's being picked up pretty well all over the world, because of its simplicity in learning to play an instrument. It can be used in music education, and as such, it is now going further afield than when we first sent it out.
Yeah. And it's such a distinctive instrument, isn't it? I mean, you know straight away when you hear it.
Yes, you do. And remember, our steelpan, we actually have a family of steelpan instruments. Most people know the single pan, which is called the tenor pan. But we also have what is called a double tenor. Then there is a double seconds. These are two pans. Then we come to the middle section of the steel band, where we have double guitars, or triple guitars, or three cellos, or four cellos, or quadraphonics, which means people play either two pans, three pans, or four pans.
Right.
And then we come to the what we call the background section of a steel band, or bass. And here people play from a 4 bass, which is called a tenor bass, 6 bass, which is a standard, and in some bands we have 7 bass, 9 bass, 10 bass, and 12 bass bands that people play.
Yeah.
And that, when you put all those instruments together in your steel band, the sound that comes from it, the music that comes from it, it's really marvelous. And the fact that there isn't a genre of music a steel band cannot play.
And that's interesting because, you know, we thought we might talk about some modern songs and some popular songs that have used steel pans. And you say that it's the sort of instrument that can absolutely lend itself to that.
Yes. As I said, there's not a genre that we cannot play. Chinese music, Indian music, classical music, calypso, soca, any country's music can be played on the steelpan. And in fact, people marvel at when they hear their anthem or some of their local music being played on the steelpan, because it's not something you think you could actually hear. And the fact that classical music particularly, there are recordings now by steel bands. If you listen to a classical piece of music by a conventional symphony orchestra, and you listen to that same piece of music by a steel orchestra, sometimes you can't even tell the difference between the two.
Really?
Because it is that beautiful in terms of its sound.
Wow, that's interesting. Typically, how many instruments would be in a steelpan band?
Well, the steelpan goes from what we call an assam, which might be between 9 and 15 persons, to as much as the big steel orchestras, which come out at panorama time, where you will have around 100 to 125 persons playing. Wow. And it varies between all of that.
Wow.
So in Trinidad and Tobago, for Carnival, for Panorama, we have 4 categories of steel bands. We have the single pan bands. They go from 25 to 35 players. Then we have the small conventional bands. They go from 40 to 60 players. We have medium conventional bands. They go from 70 to 90 players. And then what we call the large conventional bands that go from 100 to 125.
Wow. That's a lot to organise, definitely, Denise. Is it still
Yes.
is it still as popular for young people? Are young people still picking it up as an instrument?
Yes, in fact, if you look at videos coming out of Trinidad, at this present time, most of our steel bands, almost half, are young people.
Right.
And in many cases, almost a half of the steel bands are women. Now remember, the steel band came from roots where it was the men and it was the underclass of the society. So, you didn't think, and in fact, many parents would not let their children go in near to a steel band.
Mm.
But today, with its acceptance as a musical instrument, this is what we see in our bands. We have a lot of youngsters because we have steel bands being introduced in the schools, from primary schools into the secondary schools, into tertiary level. And at our carnival competitions, we have primary school competition, we have a secondary school competition, and we have a junior, which is the 21 and under categories of competition.
Mm.
So right across, young people are being drawn to it.
Yeah. Where did your love of it come from? Was it just sort of bred into you from day one?
Well, my love of it started, as a Trinidadian carnival time. When
Yeah.
you're small, you're going out with your parents to watch Mass on the Road, watch steel bands going by, and the music is infectious. And then it's introduced to you at the school level. So you get involved in that, and then you continue on. And then some people, after they leave school, they might stay away from it for a while, but then eventually you're drawn back to it. So for most of us, it's because of it's the society and it's our cultural heritage and the fact we are hearing the music and seeing the bands perform all year round. So we are drawn to it.
Yeah, of course, of course. I mean, it's clear from talking to you, Denise, just how proud you are of this heritage. How important is it, do you think, to celebrate this day right across the world?
I think it's important because we are celebrating the only musical instrument invented in the 20th century. Most of our musical instruments were invented long before. This is the one instrument that has been invented in the 20th century. We haven't had another official invention since then. And because the world is now accepting it because of the music, and because when you look at the performances, you marvel at the fact of what is being done. For some countries, for some people, still, they try to figure out where's the sound coming from. You're not plugged into anything. You have no wires. And I think because of that fact, and where the United Nations has recognized the instrument, the celebration globally is important.
Absolutely. There's going to be many, many towns and cities right across the world alive with the sound of Steelpan on World Steelpan Day. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak to us, Denise, and enjoy
Okay,
the
so
weekend.
before I leave, I just want to say our High Commission in London, they are going to be hosting a Steelpan celebration tomorrow from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. local time in London, and it's free to the population to attend, so that in all over the world they are going to try to have people come and enjoy the Steelpan music. Okay?
That sounds great to me. If you needed an introduction to Steelpan, Denise, have you got any suggestions of songs we could look at?
An introduction in terms of songs,
Yeah.
there isn't just any. Well, you can take simple nursery rhyme songs
Oh,
and
wow.
start using that to play your Steelpan.
Yeah.
Because in the primary schools and in the kindergartens, that's what they would do. Use songs that the children learn and they can sing along with.
Fantastic. It's a good introduction for anybody then. Have you got any favourite songs you can share with us? Played on the Steelpan?
Favorite song.
Is that a big question?
I think one favorite song that I like to play is Imagine by John Lennon.
Oh.
Right? It's a song my band performs when we play out, but it's a song that, even when you're performing it, you feel something. And it's one of the songs I think I would consider a favorite. There are hundreds of others, but
Yeah.
for something, a popular song that most people would know, Imagine by John Lennon.